Welcome to 100 Days of Code with Here. My name is Shruti and we are in week 13 of 100 Days of Code with Here. And so, as you probably know by now, we have been covering different APIs provided by Here Technologies in this 100 Days of Code with Here. We have been using these APIs since the 1st of April now. So, we are into week 13, which is days 61 through 65. Don't worry if you've missed any of the previous days of code. What you just need to do is go to the description box in this video. You will get all the links to the previous blog posts, to the previous videos with solutions for the previous days. So let's get started with day 61. So with day 61, we are going forward with the routing version 7 API. And again, we've seen how powerful it is in terms of simply giving you routes. But with day 61, we are going to look at a new parameter. So with day 61, what we wanted to do is, suppose you're a restaurant and you want to sort of limit your delivery to a 10-kilometer radius for whatever reasons, right? So how would you know if a certain location is within that 10-kilometer distance? So maybe let's just quickly draw a circle, let's say, of radius 10 kilometers. I'm going to use a circle that we used before so that we don't waste time in that. And so we have a circle of 10 kilometers. And I'm going to select a point here at the end, at the radius of this, and get a route there. So the reason I'm doing this is I want to know if this route is actually within the 10-kilometer driving radius. So what I'm going to do is keep the center of my circle the same, or the same as this center, and change the waypoint 1, which is the destination, to this latitude and longitude on the circumference of the circle. So once we have that, I'm going to quickly just make some changes in this. I don't want 3 alternatives. We don't want this. Let's ask for a summary. So the route attributes that I want is summary. I think this should be enough. And now if we check this, you get a route that's it. And if you see the distance, it's actually 14 kilometers. And the radius was supposed to be 10 kilometers, right? So what went wrong? So what happens is when we draw a circle on our map, it's not necessarily with the routing radius. What you want is that your destination is within 10 kilometers of driving or walking or whatever your routing mode is. So that was what we were checking for day 61, that when you draw a circle of radius 10 kilometers, it necessarily isn't the routing distance that is to that certain point within the circle. With day 62, we are going to solve the problem that we faced during day 61. So we actually need to find out all the navigable places within the 10-kilometer radius. So specifically for this, the routing version 7 API has something called Isoline Routing. So isolines are nothing but the exact thing that we want. So we want all the places which are reachable with or navigable within a certain distance or certain time. So for day 62, we are going to look at the calculate isoline endpoint. And in that, we are going to look at the range distance, the range type, which is distance. So what we want is, we want all the places within the 10-kilometer radius. So again, the range type should be distance. And here the range is written in meters, that we saw in the circle as well. So it would be 10,000 meters to get all the places reachable within the 10-kilometer radius. So let's change that quickly to our Yeah, the Isoline API. So we want the mode to be fastest with car. That remains the same. Then we have the waypoint 0. So the center should be called the start. We don't need this. Instead, what we want is a range and then the range type. So we have mode, we have start, then we have range, which is, so the range was 10,000, and then range type as distance. So once we have these, we want to change the callback function a little bit to sort of draw out, basically draw out our Isoline. So I'm going to just use the one given in examples. You can find that in the JavaScript, maps for JavaScript, and in that you can find the handler. But basically what it gives us all the points that are reachable in the form of a line string. So I'm just quickly going to add that and show you how we will get yeah, let's see. And again, we need to also change the routing call. So I'll also show you how that would look like. But first, let me just change this. So you have the routing call, the routing instantiation, and then you have the callback, and then you need to close this bracket. So what I'm doing here is I'm calling the calculate isoline endpoint. In that, I'm passing the routing parameters, which were the starting point, so the center of this isoline, the mode, the range type, which is distance, and then the range itself. So once we do that, we are calling this, and then our onResult function is basically, it is using this points, the center of the isoline, and then the isoline coordinates, which we receive in the response isoline component. So let's just hit refresh, and this should show me, let's see what's the issue. Oh, okay, I need to hit refresh here. Let's see. Yeah. So now I should probably get some errors. I'm missing some kind of a bracket here. Okay. So my routing params are named differently. Let's change this. Now we should definitely get an isoline. Perfect. So what we have here is the original circle that we drew, which was with a plane radius of 10 kilometers, and we just drew like a circle around it. And then we have an isoline of 10 kilometers. So the points that lie within the darker polygon or polyline, or whatever you want to call it, are the actual ones which are reachable within a distance of 10 kilometers. So that was the solution, and that was it for day 62. In many countries, including India, distance is often denoted in time, in the sense that, you can reach here in 5 minutes, the supermarket is 10 minutes away, and such. And so when situations arise wherein you have to have a certain area to be denoted in time, in the sense that you may have these pizza delivery uh, commercials which say that we will deliver your pizza in 30 minutes or less. In such cases, you also want to know what are the areas which lie within that given time frame, which you can navigate to within that time frame, or which you can drive to or walk to in that time frame. So again, for the same thing, we also can use the isoline. We just talked about how isoline has a range type, and we use the range type a distance for day 62. So for day 63, we are going to use the range type time. And so let's change this to time. And then we want to give it a range in seconds. So let's say we want 15 minutes. So 15 minutes would be 15 into 60, which is 900 seconds. So this is, let's say, seconds, which is 15 into 60 seconds. So now when we have this, I'm just going to save this, and the isoline looks something like this. So there are places along the highway, let's say along the motorway, which are actually reachable within 15 minutes. And then there are places which are, let's say they have a water body in between, or where the connectivity is not pretty good. That's where you won't be able to reach within 15 minutes. So that's your isoline with range type as time. And that was it for day 63. With day 64, we are going to look at a more complex part, or a complex endpoint of the routing API. And the one that I'm talking about is the calculate matrix. Now, what is calculate matrix? So this is basically, you have a bunch of starting points and a bunch of destinations, and then you want to get the best route on which one should go first, and how can you reach from what destination or what origin. And now how do you see this in the real life? So imagine you have a bunch of friends, and you want to plan, let's say you want to plan going out somewhere, right? And now you want to find the perfect place that is equidistant from all of your places. You want to find out what is the more preferable or the most convenient place for all of you to meet. And now, if to do that, what would you do is, let's say you select a place, then you find out the distance from each of your houses to that place. Then you select another option that was given. Then you sort of calculate the distances from all of your houses to that particular option. And then you compare, and then you get, oh, this seems to be the closest to us, or this seems to be the most convenient with like less stops, or whatever you're choosing to do, right? Now, this is a very elaborate process, and all this to just plan a place to meet, and which is probably why we end up not going out when we really want to. So to solve one of these situations, you have the calculate matrix. And so calculate matrix has the option to add a bunch of starting points and a bunch of destinations. So a list of waypoints defining destinations, a list of waypoints defining the starting points in the route. And again, they are limited to 15. And the destinations are limited to 100. So that's something that you need to take a note of. Now, what we're going to see is how this particular API works. So again, let's say the URL. Yeah, the URL of this particular endpoint is it is, let's pull this. Yeah, so it's routing 7.2 calculate matrix, and then the format you want. If you want to see the base route, you go to guides. So you have this, and then within the matrix routing, you will get the base URL for the matrix routing API. So again, you have matrix.route.ls.yourapi.com. So I'm going to paste this in. And then I want routing 7.2. And calculate matrix. .json, because I'm going to process my URL in JSON. So I'm just going to select JSON. You can either select JSON or XML format. Now we have the URL. The next thing is we need the API key. So you have the API key. And now we know that we have already saved this API key. Here grades.js key. So then these are the main two things. Then we have a few more compulsory parameters. So one of them is, again, you want to know the mode of transport. Let's go back to calculate matrix. Yep. So you have the API key. Now I want to write the mode first. So again, the mode is similar to the mode in the routing API. So you have fastest, car, you have traffic, you have other modes of transport. I'm going to select fastest car. Then you have, so now what you have to enter is the starting destinations and then the ending, or rather starting points and the destination points. Sorry. So there you go. So then again, it is a list of waypoints defining the start points, and then you number them according to which ones they are. So the start would be S0, S1, S2, so on and so forth. And these are geopoints, so they need to have a latitude and longitude. So I'm going to define a bunch of start points. Let's say, let me just copy some of the starting points that I already have here. So you have this, then you have start 1, sorry. And then you have start 2. And similarly, I'm going to copy destination points as well. So just bear with me until I do that. And again, destinations will also be numbered. So it will be called destination 0, destination 1, and so on and so forth. The starting points are limited to 15. The destination points are limited to 100. So you have destination 0 equals You would normally just let users pick out the starting and destinations and just copy these or basically borrow these from the user select. Okay, so we have 3 starting points, we have 2 destinations. I want to find out which is the best, the most convenient destination for us to go out. And then what you want. So you also want something in return, right? You want to know something. So with the calculate matrix API, what it gives us is a bunch of attributes. And what you want is a bunch of the matrix attributes. And in that, I'm going to select indices. You can either select summary or indices. We can check both if we want to. So I'm going to check matrix attributes. And in that, I'm going to say indices. Now, once we have all our parameters, I've just made a get call. And I'm just writing down or logging out the response. So there's nothing on the screen to see. And now in my response, if I see the matrix entry, you have all the 6 options. And then you have the summary, which is the cost factor, which gives the cost factor. It also gives you so this is the start destination and destination index and start index. So this is the route from the start point 0 to destination 0. This is the start point 0 to destination 1, so on and so forth. And you can see the cost factor involved, and you can basically select the one with the least cost factor. So with an overview, I see that, well, more or less they're similar, but you would be able to get better results and decide which place you should go to. With day 65, we are going to try to take or bring out more things from the Calculate Matrix API. And so the last time we saw what summaries and what are the indices or what are the attributes that we can get from the matrix attributes. And we saw that you had summaries. And then within summaries, we want to define some more attributes. So in the default attributes are just the cost factor that we also got in the previous mention. But then now we want to get more attributes from the summary. So we already have summary as the matrix attribute, and I'm going to add indices as well. Let's keep that in. And then within the matrix attributes, we also want certain summary attributes. And for that, I am going to select, let's say we already have the cost factor as default. And then we have the route ID, we have the distance. Let's say, oh, we don't have the route ID yet. So let's get the route ID from the summary. So, and okay, this indicates whether the route ID shall be calculated and provided in the summaries. And then you can possibly draw out the route from the route ID. So you have this and you have the route ID. So there you go. Once you add this here, what we have is a route ID. And then you can use the get route endpoint to draw out the route itself. So that was day 65. And with day 65, we have looked at a few more APIs or endpoints of the routing API version 7. If you want to know what we covered in the previous days, you can take a look at the link in the description below. We have links to the previous blog posts. We have links to the previous videos or the playlist called 100 Days of Codes from our YouTube channel, Here Maps. And if you want to keep following 100 Days of Codes, go to our Twitter @HereDev, where you will find these posts, these tasks that we post every day. We also have a GitHub repository where we have listed all the code snippets that we've been using since day 1. So take a look at the repository, and while you're at it, you can also take a look at other blog posts not related to 100 Days of Code in our developer section at developer.here.com/blog. So keep following 100 Days of Code and happy coding.